carnage in Ukraine. Bodies piled up on the roads. Horrors of Putin's war now out. World in shock over the images from Bucha.
Еще сына, ни жены, ни внуков не дождался. Таки одного.
India condemns Bucha massacre.
We are deeply disturbed by the reports. We strongly condemn the killings which have taken place there. This is an extremely serious matter and we support the call for an independent investigation.
Biden throws war criminal charge at Putin.
It's not time for politics. Thank you.
Russia disowns killings, blames Ukraine. Who's the real butcher of Bucha? Top focus at 5 Live.
For a country that has maintained total neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war so far, for India it appears that Bucha was the limit and a limit has been crossed. And that's why today India has gotten into the Bucha massacre to ask, who is the real butcher of Bucha? This is a question that India is asking along with several other countries in the world and backing an independent investigation on the back of an India Today report of bodies on the streets and a true war crime that has been committed. The real question is, who is responsible? Was it the Russians while they were there? Or as the Russians claim, was it Ukraine that orchestrated the killings to defame Russia? Take a look.
Streets strewn with corpses. Bodies buried in shallow graves. Burned bodies left in the open. The grisly images of battered Bucha have sparked global outrage. Ukraine has raised the Russian brutality in Bucha at the United Nations Security Council. Kyiv has urged the UN to strip Russia of its veto power.
The UN system must be reformed immediately so that the right of veto will not become the right of a death, so that there is a fair representation of all world regions in the Security Council.
After India Today reported the barbaric killings, New Delhi joined the world in slamming the killings. India Today report resonated in the parliament when External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, without naming Russia, expressed deep anguish over the bloodbath, calling for an independent investigation and immediate end to hostilities.
We strongly condemn the killings which have taken place there. This is an extremely serious matter and we support the call for an independent investigation. We encourage talks between Ukraine and Russia, including at the level of their presidents. Prime Minister has spoken to them both himself in this regard. This was precisely the message that was conveyed to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov when he was at Delhi. If India can be of any assistance in this matter, we will be glad to contribute.
Moscow is facing global revulsion and accusations of war crimes after the Russian pullout from the outskirts of Kyiv revealed horrors inflicted on the civilian population. The UK has urged G7 to ban Russian ships and set a timetable for oil and gas exit.
On Thursday, I will be urging our NATO and G7 partners to go further in sanctions by joining us in banning Russian ships from our ports, cracking down on more Russian banks, going after industries that are filling Putin's war chest, like gold, and agreeing a clear timetable to eliminate imports of Russian oil, coal and gas.
Germany, France and Spain have expelled dozens of Russian diplomats following the Bucha killings.
Estamos hablando de un número de alrededor.
I announced that this morning we have decided to expel Russian diplomats and staff from the Russian embassy in Spain, who represent a threat to the interest and security of our country.
The United States is seeking to expel Russia from the UN Human Rights Council.
Yes, the president does not believe, he believes it's ludicrous for Russia to be a member of the Human Rights Council. And certainly the ambassador spoke to this today, and while she was on her overseas trip, and she will continue to make the case in her role when she returns to New York.
Russia has rejected all the charges. Kremlin claims Bucha is a monstrous forgery aimed at maligning Russia.
Российской стороны в адрес российских военных.
The entire course of events, a huge amount of data, facts and other parameters do clearly witness that this is a forgery conducted to try and smear the Russian army. It will not work.
Russia is facing other grave charges too. The UN has accused Russia of using cluster bombs in Ukraine.
OHCHR has received credible allegations that Russian forces have used cluster munitions in populated areas at least 24 times.
Cluster munitions pose an immediate threat to civilians during a conflict. Such bombs randomly scatter sub-munitions or bomblets over a wide area. The Convention on Cluster Munitions is an international treaty that prohibits all use, transfer, production and stockpiling of cluster bombs. World leaders are calling for tougher sanctions and accountability for alleged Russian war crimes in Bucha. Bureau Report, India Today.
And it was an India Today ground report in Bucha of those killings that was part of the global outrage. It is what triggered the huge amount of shock and horror worldwide and called attention to this one small suburb of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. And now India Today's Gaurav Sawant is back in Bucha, the site of the savagery that he saw firsthand just 2 days ago and has become this global spotlight after mass graves and civilian bodies were seen strewn all over the streets. The West is accusing Russia of war crimes in Bucha. Moscow, like I said, claims that Ukraine actually staged this entire massacre, killed its own people, just to defame Russia. Here's Gaurav Sawant's latest report from Ground Zero, Bucha.
We are in Bucha at this point of time, and we have the Ukraine Army Special Forces with us. They are deployed here. There is some activity that is going on there. There is some suspect that seems to have been spotted. That area, there are Ukraine Army personnel who are deployed here. We've been asked to stay back as these personnel keep an eye on activities that are going on in Bucha. Remember, Bucha is being sanitized. Every lane of Bucha is currently being sanitized.
Number 4 school. I teach it.
What is happening there right now?
Okay. 10. Трупы. Okay?
You can do photo. This is us number 1 of special forces. This is boys is number 1 of special forces.
Okay. The special forces are here and they're clearing. They're clearing this area. They're clearing every area right now, going from lane to lane, clearing areas. There was some suspicious activity that was noticed, and that is why they're sanitizing this area before they leave. Now, everyone who's caught here, their background is checked, and only once their antecedents have been verified are they cleared to move forward, or they are detained. In Bucha, it is still feared that there are some pockets where there could be either some spies, soldiers or fighters who could still be hiding, and that is why this clearance operation is currently underway. With cameraman Lalit Mohan Joshi in Bucha, Ukraine, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
So remember, India Today explicitly entered the entire Bucha issue by saying it backs the call for an independent investigation. But you've just seen Gaurav reporting from there. It was Gaurav's own ground report 48 hours ago, along with Lalit Joshi, his camera person, that has added a truly terrifying aspect to what happened in Bucha. People definitely were massacred. Large numbers of civilians have died. But who killed those people? Here is the claim war that's currently on between Russia and Ukraine. On the one hand, you've got Ukraine claiming that images and videos are proof of those war crimes. But Russia says this was a staged performance by the Kyiv regime specifically just to defame Russia. Now, Ukraine also claims that Putin carried out this deliberate massacre on the outskirts of Kyiv because they couldn't get inside Ukraine's capital. But Russia says it was a fake attack created to undermine the Kremlin and paint it as some kind of a monster. The Ukraine claims that the killings will be recognized as genocide, and there's a global call for that as well. But Russia claims that this is plainly another provocation by the Ukraine government. And please don't misunderstand what Russia is saying. They're basically saying that the Ukrainians have killed their own people just to defame Russia. The Ukrainians claim that Russian forces are worse than ISIS on the back of what has happened inside Bucha. But Russia counters and said, Bucha is a monstrous forgery by Kyiv. It's a monstrous dishonesty and a forgery by Kyiv. So who is lying? Who is telling the truth? The fog of war, the storm of claims versus counterclaims makes it almost impossible at this point of time to actually figure who is responsible for those killings. Ukraine says, how can this question even be asked? This is the invading force. Why would we kill our own people? It is plain to see for the world that Russia is a monstrous war machine bowing to the will of one man, President Putin, sitting in the Kremlin. So why would Ukrainians kill their own people to defame Russia when the damage being dealt by Russia is already plain to see for everyone? Where was the need to do this? Well, we're here to ask the questions and show you what we've seen, not second-hand, but first-hand via Gaurav Sawant and Lalit Joshi in Bucha right now. Joining me live from Moscow is Marina Kortunova. She's a journalist. She joins me from the Russian capital. In a moment, we'll also be joined by Olha Vorozhbit. She's deputy editor-in-chief of Tizhdan.ua, which is a Ukrainian news agency. Marina, to you first. Ukraine has basically said that Russia claiming that Bucha has been done by the Ukrainians in order to paint Russia as a genocidal war machine is laughable, it is false. The damage done by Russia is plain to see for the entire world. How would you respond to that? The Ukrainians are saying, how dare you say that we have killed our own people?
Well, this is my personal opinion and not my personal opinion, but Russian Defense Ministry, this is a stage provocation, which we were ready for, and we were knew that this provocation are being prepared. So we deny accusations of Kyiv regime of allegedly killing civilians in Bucha. And all the photos and videos published by the Kyiv regime allegedly testifying in some crimes committed by Russian servicemen in Bucha, Kyiv region are just another provocation. During that time that the town has been under the control of the Russian armed forces, not a single local resident has suffered from any violent actions. Russian servicemen have delivered and distributed 552 tons of humanitarian aid to civilians in Kyiv region. For as long as the town was under the control of the Russian armed forces, and even then up to now, locals in Bucha were moving freely around the town and using cellular phones. The exits from Bucha were not blocked. All local residents were free to leave the town in northern direction, including to the Republic of Belarus. At the same time, the southern outskirts of the city, including residential areas, were shelled round the clock by Ukrainian troops with large caliber artillery, tanks and multiply launch rocket systems. These are the facts. So Russia would like to emphasize that all Russian units withdrew completely from Bucha as early as March 30th. The day after the Russia-Ukraine face-to-face round of talks in Turkey. And this is a very important point. Moreover, on March 31st, the mayor of Bucha, Anatoly Fedoryuk, confirmed in a video message that there were no Russian servicemen in the town, but he did not even mention any locals shot in the streets with their hands tied. So it is not surprising, therefore, that all the so-called evidence of crimes, in brackets, in Bucha did not emerge until the fourth day, when the security service of Ukraine and representatives of Ukrainian media arrived in the town. It is
Marina,
of particular.
I take what you're saying. I'm asking you a specific question now. Are you saying, who do you blame then? Who are you saying actually carried out these killings? Because Russia and you are making a very important, a very serious allegation. You're saying that the Ukrainian forces or the Ukrainian militias have killed their own civilians, have murdered their own civilians to make Russia look bad. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying this exactly, but all this confirms conclusively that the photos and videos footage from Bucha are another production by the Kiev regime for the Western media, as was the case in Mariupol with maternity hospital, as well as in other cities with Zmyny Island and many provocations which were before. They were all staged. So until the investigation will be published, and it is difficult to say, but the facts say for themselves that Russian troops left Bucha 4 days earlier, that the world knew about these crimes. This is what I'm trying to explain.
So who are you saying has done these killings, Marina? Who are you saying has done these killings? Are you saying it's the Azov battalion? Are you saying it's some other group?
Sure.
Who are you blaming? Because somebody has killed these people.
I think these were staged by Nazi battalions. So, users, after watching the videos, users immediately noticed that the corpses move their arms and remove their limbs so as not to fall under the wheels of military equipment. And in the rear view mirror of the operator's cameraman's car, one can see how one of the dead, gets up as soon as the car passes by. So we are all waiting for investigations. But I'm supporting Russian Defense Ministry. We deny accusations. We deny because it is something impossible. Russian military, Russian officers are not able to do this. These are staged provocations. We're only bringing humanitarian aids to these cities. So we had already have deaths among soldiers. More than 1,500 soldiers died Russian soldiers died during this military operation. We already paid a very high price for this. So Bucha, I'm absolutely sure this was staged after Mariupol, maternity hospital, and more. We're just waiting for investigation.
Marina, but okay, I take what you're saying, Marina, but the Ukrainians say, why do they need to, stage something like this or try and orchestrate something like this and blame it on Russia? They say that the damage that has been caused by Russia is already visible in different places. The loss of human life, the humanitarian tragedy is already visible to the entire world. Why do they need to do something like this when, Russia is already being blamed by many countries for causing all this damage and loss of life? Why specifically in Bucha?
I think the West wants to turn Bucha into Ukrainian Srebrenica and accuse the Russian side of allegedly genocide of the local population, despite the fact that the clumsiness of preparing these materials is visible to the naked eye. I want to say that a week ago I went to Donbas region, to the front line, and I'm answering your question that for 8 years, Donbas, a region of eastern Ukraine that did not accept the results of the Kiev coup in 2014, has been under frequent shelling from national battalions and the armed forces of Ukraine. Why? Why they have been shelling? Because the people, they refuse to take this coup. They speak Russian. The Russian language is prohibited in the Ukraine, and residents of Donbas called it a war crime against the people, and from that moment Ukraine ceased to be a state in their eyes. And I'm not mentioning, according to Russian investigators, the actions of Ukrainian military led to deaths of more than 1,600 civilians, while more than 5,500 people were injured. So I'm not mentioning civilian infrastructure facilities were also destroyed. They have been doing, the Ukrainian side, they have been doing this for 8 years. So I've visited Gorlovka, I visited all these shelled regions, shelled towns. They're being shelled regularly. In Donetsk, it's being shelled regularly every day, every single day for 8 years. So the West kept a blind eye upon this. So maybe this is an answer to you.
One final question in that case, Marina. You know, India has taken a neutral stance so far on what's happening in Ukraine. They've abstained at the United Nations as well. The Indian friendship with Russia goes back a long way. India has been criticized by some, but also praised by many, including by your foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, a couple of days ago, for its neutral stand. And India has its own foreign policy and the decisions it has taken. Today in our parliament, I'm sure you must have heard that India has condemned what happened in Bucha. It has not blamed anyone, but it has called for an independent investigation into the killings of Bucha. What do you think of that?
This is India's right, of course, but we have to wait, first of all, for the investigation, because this Western hysteria is actually I have personal lots of questions to the Western hysteria. It looks like it's been prepared. So I want to say that Moscow had documents with the proof that Kyiv was preparing a large-scale attack and intended to destroy the DNR and LNR. Why most of the world see as a Russian aggression? I want to say that we just had few days earlier, and Russia says its aim over the past months has been to target Ukrainian military infrastructure to prevent the enemy from regrouping and reinforcing its presence in the Donbass. And Russia Federation will press ahead with the strategy until the whole region is liberated. So until this case is India's right to blame Russia, but first of all, we have to wait for independent investigation and not to run before the events. I think it will be like the situation like in Srebrenica, and facts will come out. The truth will come out. I strongly believe in it.
Marina Kortunova, pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us. Very serious allegations being thrown back at Ukraine at this point of time. Nobody's any closer to knowing who the real butchers of Bucha really are. The capital Kyiv's suburbs have been retaken by Ukrainian forces, but the towns are completely shattered. India Today's Rajesh Pawar traveled to Borodyanka, another suburb of Kyiv that's turned into a ghost town now. Take a look at this latest report that he's just sent us.
I'm in the town of Borodyanka now. It is about 20 kilometers from Bucha. This is one of the places which witnessed heavy fighting in between the two forces. And we are on a conducted tour by the Ukrainian government. International and local journalists have been brought here. And the background, if you can see, this is an apartment block, the central portion of which has been totally blown out. The rest of it is burnt. There in the corner is another apartment block which has suffered the same fate. Half of it blown out, the rest of it burnt out. Debris everywhere here. And these people you see, they are all international or local journalists who have been brought here now. And the building behind is also destroyed. And this place is called Taras Shevchenko Square. And we have been first brought here by the Ukrainian officials to show the area around what all happened. And this has a lot of significance in terms of this man, Taras Shevchenko. The universities and a lot of places are named after him. Is kind of a symbol of Ukrainian nationhood. Something like we have Mahatma Gandhi for India, similar. And that's the statue of Taras Shevchenko destroyed. This was an apartment block, a residential area. And now totally flattened. The soldier here who has been posted here today He has come on duty here. He was not here when this fighting here took place. But
not professional. I was in ATO.
ATO?
Yes, ATO. This is from in Donbass.
Okay.
Terrorist operation.
Oh, you were at anti-terrorist operation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were fighting there before the war started.
Fighting there. First of all, it was in 2015 to 2011 or 2018 years. I was there, and then I came here to live, work, and
the war started.
I don't understand when it started here. It was really not scary for me, not scary, but I'm not understand why I
agree with you. And before you came here, where were you before this?
We were in Bucha, Irpin.
So when the fighting was taking place, where were you at that time? When the fighting was actually taking place, the Russians were here. When the Russian army was here, that time where were you?
We were in Aroor. This
tank fight took place there. A lot of tank fight. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All the best. Yes.
And Ola Vorozhbit, Deputy Editor-in-Chief at Tizhdan.ua, which is a Ukrainian news outlet, is live with us. She's a Ukrainian journalist. Ola, good to see you. I'm glad you're safe. Thank you for your time here on India Today. I want to talk to you about what's happening in Bucha, of course. Ola, you know, we've just had a Russian journalist on the show a short while ago. They've, you know, their claim, as you've probably heard, is that this entire massacre in Bucha has been staged. It has been orchestrated by Ukraine. It happened after, you know, the Russian forces actually left from there. It's been, you know, done by the so-called Nazi battalions of Ukraine. And it has all been done to, you know, paint Russia in a very, very poor light. How would you respond to that? Because that's the official allegation that's being made by Russia.
Well, look, thank you for your invitation today. And once more, probably your journalists are on the place and they've seen what is doing and what's happening now and what is the result of Russian activities in Bucha, and not only in Bucha, in Hostomel, in Borodyanka. We have number of people who are missing in Hostomel. So today it was named like 400 people are missing still in Hostomel, 200 in Borodyanka. And also we have like satellite images, probably you also have seen them, that those people, the bodies of those people, they were laying on the roads in Bucha since the mid of March when Russian soldiers were there. So sorry, but what Russia is doing, it is just pure propaganda, because there are exact evidences of which prove the contrary, and probably you as a journalist seen them, and it's easily to be proved. So this is just what you were telling now, you're just repeating Russian propaganda, which was made up because the evidences are the others. Shiv, I don't hear you, Alas.
Yeah, Ola, I apologize for that audio glitch there. I heard everything that you just said. You know, India has called for an independent investigation into what has happened there. It's the first time that India has spoken specifically about what has happened in Bucha. What did you think about that, Ola?
The investigation would be going on, and this is not India as far as which calls on that. But what we see now and the evidences we have just at this moment, they show the contrary to what Russia says. And they show that what was happening in Bucha, those atrocities that were there, they were that's pure genocide of Ukraine, of Ukrainians as people, as a nation. And we also have now the scientists who research the issues of genocide who are talking about that, just because those atrocities. And this is what people in Ukraine are afraid to see on those territories of Ukraine, which are now under Russian occupation, for example, in southern Ukraine.
Ola, it's a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on India Today. A war of claims between both sides over what's taking place in Bucha. What has taken place in Bucha is horrifying. and it makes us wonder whether the truth will ever actually be known. Ukraine says the proof is there. There are satellite pictures, there have been reporters on the ground, there have been eyewitnesses, the civilian catastrophe is there for people to see, but Russia says this has been orchestrated by Ukraine to defame Putin and Russia. Remember, India continues to forge its own diplomatic path amidst Cold War 2.0. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar today, speaking in Parliament, set the record straight on India's stand, declaring that India has chosen to be on the side of peace and will put its own interests and the well-being of its population first above all. This is a new, fearless, rising India. At the same time, India has said that it condemns what happened in Bucha and has called for an independent investigation to hold those responsible accountable.
As the Ukraine war rumbles on destructively, one of Russia's oldest allies, India, has been on constant geopolitical spotlight. Why is India going soft on Putin's invasion? Is India alleviating the impact of Western sanctions on Moscow? Why is India still buying Russian oil and weapons? Has India aligned itself in a deeply polarized world since Putin's tanks rolled into Ukraine? The answers to all these questions came when External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar put the record straight in Parliament, stating that a fearless India is charting its own course in global diplomacy.
If India has chosen a side, it is the side of peace.
Hours ago, Jaishankar had spoken to his US counterpart, Antony Blinken. In the backdrop of increasing disquiet in the West over India's indications to buy larger volumes of discounted crude oil from Russia, soon after a dire warning from the White House against buying oil or weapons from Putin, but India's message was unmistakable.
We don't believe it's in India's interest to accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy and other commodities. Right now, just to give everybody the full scope of it, India's imports of Russian energy represent only 1 to 2% of their total energy imports. So while he explained both the mechanisms of our sanctions and reiterated that any country or entity should be abiding by those, we also made clear that we'd be happy to be a partner in reducing their reliance or even their small percentage of reliance on that.
Like all countries, we too are assessing the implications and deciding what is best for our national interest. Members are aware that in a complex and globalized world, every nation takes into account the reality of interdependence. Therefore, even as they express their position in words and deeds, they also adopt policies that safeguard the well-being of their population.
It began with US Deputy National Security Advisor Dalip Singh, who made the seemingly callous, intemperate remark, lecturing India on how Russia would not step in if China escalated operations at the border. A remark that has been widely derided, including by India's former ambassador to the UN, who labeled it as coercion.
What we are seeking to do, whether it is in the context of India or other partners and allies around the world, is to do all we can to see to it that the international community is speaking in unison, speaking loudly against this unjustified, unprovoked, premeditated aggression, calling for an end to the violence.
India, as you are aware, has always been in favor of resolving differences and disputes through dialogue and diplomacy. In our meeting today, we will have an opportunity to discuss contemporary issues and concerns in some detail.
India repeatedly putting its national interest as sacrosanct, refusing to get drawn into a damaging Cold War of superpowers, turning the proverbial page in global diplomacy. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, things have visibly de-escalated around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and especially in the western parts of the country. There are still some sporadic attacks, but mostly the Russian forces, like they said, have retreated. But there has been a corresponding increase in combat activity and attacks in the southern and the eastern parts of Ukraine. India Today's Geeta Mourn is the only reporter of any channel anywhere in the world in certain parts of Donbass, and Mousami Singh is in the southern part of Ukraine from Odessa to Mykolaiv, both areas that are now facing the full strength of Putin's war machine. Take a look at this exclusive report.
Caliber cruise missiles lift off from a small Russian Navy ship in the Black Sea, aimed at 7 different targets in southern Ukraine. A Russian Su-35 air superiority fighter taking off and conducting a strike mission on an undisclosed target inside Ukraine. A Russian anti-air system launching and hitting what is claimed to be a Ukrainian Bayraktar drone, an unmanned system that has been giving hell to Russian vehicles in the weeks gone by. And these latest images of Russian Onyx supersonic cruise missiles being launched at Ukrainian targets in the eastern part of the country. The de-escalation by Russia in the central and western parts of Ukraine are being matched with corresponding escalation in the southern and eastern parts of the country, borne out by an unending stream of footage of the targeted attacks.
The domination of eastern Ukraine will require sustained escalation in this part of the country. And that's what we are witnessing as we travel through the Donbass region.
The Russian forces are regrouping with attacks from land and from sea. The southern part has become the prime target in the second phase of war.
In the airspace above Ukraine, Russia continues to be challenged formidably by Ukraine's weapons. This is a Russian Su-35 air superiority fighter that was shot down using NATO weaponry earlier this week. The pilot now in Ukrainian captivity. But could Russia be planning to deploy its stealth fighter, the Su-57, to conduct strike missions in Ukraine? The Su-57 is the 5th generation fighter built to remain barely visible to radar and other sensors, and could trump Ukraine's air defenses, or at least make life more difficult for them. A citizen's video in the early days of the war was believed to be Su-57 on a test bombing mission over the city of Zhytomyr west of Kyiv, though this advanced aircraft type definitely hasn't been deployed in any real numbers. With Putin narrowing his attacks to the southern and eastern parts of Ukraine, the strength of Russia's military could become more concentrated. With thousands of square kilometers of Ukraine already laid to waste, could what come next be Putin's most decisive escalation? With Mousami Singh in southern Ukraine and Geeta Mohan in eastern Ukraine, Bureau Report, India Today.
And like I said, Geeta Mohan and Satya Rautre is the only international team that's reporting from the actual front lines in the Donbass region. Those are the eastern rebel regions which are in Russian control and facing Ukrainian attacks. There is fierce fighting taking place where my colleague is reporting from. Take a look at what Geeta has just sent us.
Wartime difficulties now we're facing, and it has begun. From the hotel, Satya, no heating, because the water pumps that were there for water supply, some of them have been damaged because of the Ukrainian attacks, and so without water there can be no heating. Satya, very cold room?
Yes, yesterday night there is no water, no gas supply. Entire room is cold.
Satya and I over here have picked up these canisters. Don't think I'm not thinking environment, I'm still thinking environment. So we've picked up these 4 basic canisters, and we go to the shopping mall every day and we fill up these canisters. Apart from that, the hotel has some sort of water supply which is provided in the morning and evening, and so we are not there. So early in the morning, if there's water, we bathe and then we leave, but drinking water certainly short in supply. We have only 2 SIM cards. For broadcast journalists, we know when we try using our broadcast machines, that's the LiveView units, we require more SIM cards. So that's not available. And once we move out of Donetsk city, there is no network and connectivity. So huge problems, but despite that, Satya and I over here are trying to get you all the reports from the war zone. In Donetsk, Geeta Mohan for India Today. In a wartime and war zone, there are many difficulties. The biggest difficulty that we're facing now is that because of some of the Ukrainian attacks, the water pumps, crucial water pumps outside of the city have been destroyed, and that's why water has become a huge problem. What we're doing over here, Satya and I, we are trying to, we've come to a center, a shopping center. We've picked up these huge cans. Massive shelling, massive operation over here in Elyanka. You can see there, smoke still billowing. This entire camp was attacked. It had a lot of tanks, armored vehicles, Ural trucks, and artillery carrier vehicles as well. Has been attacked. So officers over here trying to now assess the situation. They're trying to retrieve all the armored vehicles, artillery carriers and tanks as soon as they can, and save as many as they can. But if you see over here, the situation pretty bad. The forces have moved out of here and they're trying to retrieve as many as they can. This is also a base camp where captured Ukrainian tanks and armored vehicles were brought in and then were sent for repair and then to be reused. So a very important camp over here has come under Ukrainian attack. I'm being joined by Officer Ilya, who will explain what really happened over here and how are they trying to contain the Ukrainian forces.
Дальнейшие наши действия идти вперед и только вперед, не останавливаясь. Занимать непосредственно, возвращать непосредственно границы Донецкой Народной Республики, как говорится, в свои земли.
So the only action he is planning now, he knows that we're gonna continue to push and taking back our grounds, which is must be under public control.
There's major shelling over here. Now what is the sounds? What are they doing? Are they diffusing? Are they detonating? What are they doing?
Сейчас звуки хлопков происходят. Сейчас это... Что это происходит сейчас?
Это... Непосредственно это сейчас в данный момент происходят действия наступательного характера.
So, okay, let's wait a bit, okay? So the thing is, you're asking about what is happening here, but it's not the thing you want to ask now, at the moment. So they do other questions or...
Okay, so ask him, how many Ukrainian soldiers were they, was his force, his team? How many Ukrainian soldiers did his team capture?
Есть у вас вообще за время операции, были украинские пленные у вас?
Да, были много десятков, потому что наш полк уже порядка 17 населенных пунктов, это не считая те, которые мы прошли, 17 населенных пунктов мы взяли боями.
So they took around 17 villages and small...
Надо прекращать.
Okay, let's stop it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
In 42 days of the war, Volodymyr Zelensky has been transformed from the not very much known president of Ukraine into a global superstar and a world leader who's considered a hero to his people. But the war has also taken a great personal toll on Volodymyr Zelensky, and it's quite visible. Take a look.
A clean-shaven President Zelensky in his suit and tie addressed his nation on February 22nd amid gathering Russian war clouds. Weeks later, dressed in an army jacket, a bulletproof vest, an unkempt beard, and often sporting a bulletproof army helmet, this is President Zelensky reinventing himself, changing his attire as per the need to lead his nation locked in a fierce fight back. The war has taken a toll on the sartorial sense of President Volodymyr Zelensky, transforming a suave, urbane and nattily dressed president in a tailored suit into a wartime president in combat fatigue, battle-ready and boosting the morale of his forces.
Ukraine is defending and would not give its freedom, whatever they think in Moscow. Russia cowardly attacked our country early in the morning, very much like Nazi Germany did during the Second World War.
Presidents do not usually write down addresses like this, but today I have to say just that, to talk about the discoveries in Bucha and other cities from where the occupiers were expelled. Hundreds of people tortured, killed, and civilians executed. Bodies on the street. Booby-trapped areas. Even the bodies of the dead are booby-trapped. Widespread aftermath of looting. Concentrated evil has visited our land. The killers, executioners, rapists, murderers, who call themselves an army and who deserve only death after what they have done.
Zelensky has also traded his suit for a plain green round-neck t-shirt, popular with soldiers ever since Russia waged war on Ukraine. From addressing the United Nations, the US Congress, the EU Parliament and the Grammys, the wartime president Zelensky's dressing sense has made him a cult figure for those who back Ukraine, sending a message that the wartime president is leading from the front.
The UN system must be reformed immediately so that the right of veto will not become the right of a death, so that there is a fair representation of all world regions in the Security Council.
Zelensky's military round-neck t-shirt has become a fashion trend as well, making it popular for t-shirt motif across the world. The change in appearance for a president is usually that of graying hair, but Zelensky's transformation shows how times are tough for Ukraine. And what can be a better symbol of hope and strength than an olive green shirt-clad president who switches into combat dress in solidarity? A connect between the president and the army fighting for the motherland. Choosing the most accessible government around, Zelensky's message is clear. He's in solidarity with Ukrainians. Bureau Report, India Today.